Here we are. When am I gonna come down? When am I gonna land? I should have stayed on just one YouTube channel, but I am more than a man, I think. I don't know what that means. Hey, welcome to New Rockstars, The Deep Dive. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a live breakdown of Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. It is Friday, February 17, 2023. I've never done this by myself before, so it's going to get interesting here. It is our official launch day of our new Deep Dive channel. I've been working on this for months. We have an amazing team behind the scenes here who's been helping me get off the ground. And we wanted to celebrate this launch day with talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, the launch of Marvel Phase 5. Yeah, a lot of you saw our launch date and you said, isn't something else happening that day? And I said, yeah, I just wanted us all to be together because I don't know about you, but my favorite part of seeing a movie isn't seeing the movie itself. It's hanging out in the lobby afterwards and talking about it with people that I love. And you're the people that I love right now. Now that doesn't mean to say if you weren't able to see this movie on opening night, I don't love you. I love all of you too. It's just there's something sacred about the right of seeing a movie on opening night. I have friends over at the Ringer Network, and they're called the Midnight Boys. And once I heard that, I'm like, yeah, there's something to that. Seeing a movie at midnight or opening night, the night before, the next morning, and you want to find that tribe of people that you can connect with, because not everyone has seen it yet, and it's kind of hard to find that group of people, and that's what this live stream is going to be. Again, this is the first time I've ever done this, and yeah, we're going to get into some spoilers for Quantumania. We're going to go through this movie scene by scene. I'm going to give you a peek at my process behind the scenes. A lot of you have asked me over the years, how do you do what you do? And I'm going to disillusion all that for you in this live stream. There's no magic. There's no mystery. It's just a lot of tedious, obsessive work and journalistic research, because that's my background. I was a journalist. I was a journalism major at University of Florida. And when there's a fact error, God, it hurts me. It hurts me so bad when I get something wrong. But yeah, I am live right now, and we don't have super chats yet because we're not partnered. We're not a monetized channel. So I'm just going to try to look in the stream and respond as closely in real time as I can. I want to thank everyone who's joining us. I see Edgar's, I see Dead Man Walking Zero, you and Sonic Broadcast, Eric J, Natasha L, First Showing Baby, Frank Valdez. I see Nolan Young saw it last night with my stepsis, thought it was fantastic. Hey, great for you for going with family. Oh, now the chat's going wild. They're like, you can see us. I can see you, and I love all you guys. Marshall, Go Gators Jr. there right now. Hey, you can do whatever you want to do. The Gator Nation's everywhere, man. Olive Party, Noise. Oh man, now it's wild. I made a huge mistake, but I love all you guys. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to try to check in with this throughout the live stream. Another reminder, if you're just joining us, this is a spoiler-filled live breakdown of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. We're going to be talking about this movie from start to finish. I can't guarantee what's going to be in the comments won't be spoilers. People are excited about this movie's ending and post-credit scene. I try to do my best to warn you guys in the thumbnail and in the corner image up here. Shout out to John Costa, who's helping us behind the scenes right now. And shout out to New Rockstars lead editor, Devin Cleary. He's been working so hard to get all of our launch day content up and ready to go. So those 3 videos are on the channel right now. Our first investigation on trailer deception, and then we did a WandaVision deep dive and a Loki deep dive. That Loki deep dive you're definitely going to want to watch now. I'm sure you will. So yeah, I know the movie just came out last night, but it's, you know, there's a lot to talk about, and it's Marvel Phase 5 is beginning. Let's do it. Yeah, just a quick reminder, deep dive, new channel in the New Rockstars Digital Network. I'm not leaving New Rockstars. I'm going to be on 2 channels now. I'm going to be on this one every Friday, and then sometimes other days of the week. It's just me over here. And then every day, I'm still going to be over at New Rockstars doing the Easter egg breakdowns, the after shows theories, all that good stuff. And in fact, my Easter egg breakdown of Quantumania is going to be coming out on the main channel later today, just a few hours. So please subscribe to the deep dive. Go watch those other things. We got some great merch. I'm wearing it right here. We got a hat. We got a water bottle. Go to nerdriot.shop to support this network. And there's all kinds of great stuff over there. Okay, so what you're looking at behind me on screen is what we call the string out. A lot of you ask me, hey, how do you break down movies that are still in theaters? Do you get early access from Disney or from Marvel Studios? No, my friend. So this is like one of the hardest parts of our job. What you're looking at is a string out of the movie. This was assembled. Every time there is a trailer that comes out, and you know we're down in the final weeks before release, every day there's like a new 15 or 30-second teaser that comes out. Well, every single one of those videos, there is 1 or 2 frames in it sometimes that show a different part of the movie. I go through all of those and I reassemble them chronologically in order. It's very difficult, but that's how we get a chronological string out of the movie that our editors can use to piece together our assets for our videos. So yeah, we aren't getting like HD quality stuff. We're just taking it from all the promo footage, and that's what we're going to be using as our template right now. And we kind of reorder it. What we did here is at the beginning is our Marvel Studios opening title card, because every breakdown I do, I always start with this. There is always a ton of cool stuff here because Marvel updates this every title. Every title, there's new stuff. You can see Jane Foster here. This was pulled from a past Disney Plus episode. We kind of recreated it. But the big new detail that they added here, boom, this guy right here. Jonathan Majors, as He Who Remains from the Loki finale, was added to the A of Marvel Studios. Very, very big deal because this is the first time a villain, I'm pretty sure the first time a villain was added to the opening title card. Now, you could argue He Who Remains, especially now, by looking at Kang the Conqueror, is not as villainous. He's just kind of mischievous. But in the terms of Loki, he was definitely a villain, and I think it's a big deal. That's how big of a deal he is. And in the breakdown that I do, I kind of talk about the significance of him being put in the A. Because, again, this is a spoiler discussion of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. In the post-credits scene, pretty sure one of the Kang variants we see is Mr. Gryphon, who is the CEO of QENG Enterprises, who takes over Avengers Tower, or Stark Towers. The A, standing for Avengers. Kang's face is on the A. I think there's some significance to that. But there's a lot of cool stuff that they added to this opening title card. Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan is now in the R. In the movie that you see, the V actually has Shuri from Black Panther in it. There's always just great stuff. And what's really cool is they'll often just move stuff around randomly. They'll, like, going back here. Sorry, I'm wearing a lot of hats here. They'll just move stuff randomly from the island of the R. And there's like significance to that. If you watch our WandaVision deep dive, I kind of talk about how randomly for WandaVision, they moved Wanda to this island. And that's why she's here now, because she's isolated. And she's dangerous when she's isolated. But we're not here to talk about WandaVision. We're here to talk about Quantumania. So Quantumania, as a movie, actually opens in this prologue scene, this flashback with Janet Van Dyne. And I love the fact that we begin the story as a story between Janet and Kang. Because they're both OG Avengers characters. Wasp was on the very first Avengers cover, and I think the fact that they're bringing Wasp back now for Quantumania and for Phase 5 is a big deal. I also think it's interesting here that you see 3 pieces of his ship breaking off. How many Kang sabotaged his ship? 3 of them. The number 3 of those leaders of the Kang dynasty, that inner circle of it, I think it's significant. I mean, there's the Holy Trinity, right? There's the 3 Timekeeper statues in Loki's Citadel at the end of time. He remains Citadel. Just gonna check into the comments here. Let's see. We got Disney fan Eric. Will you do another collab live stream with Real Rejects? I would love to. I love Greg Alba and the team they have there. It's awesome. There's a bunch of great guys over there. People talking about the CGI of this movie. I thought the CGI was fine. There was just a lot of it. And I think you're gonna see a lot of criticism of the volume, the use of the volume in this movie. I don't really have a problem with it because I like interestingly designed. I look at this image right now and I think it's beautiful. I also love the color scheme. Important to talk about. I'm gonna do a separate deep dive analysis on this channel next week on the 24th. What colors do we see here? We see purple, we see teal. Significant Kang colors. And who just banished Kang here? The Kang dynasty, who represent these colors. I don't think it's crazy to look at that. Okay, right. Yes, I'm seeing 4 streaks too, but you're not seeing 4 streaks. You are seeing one that is the trail of the crashing ship, and you're seeing 3 other pieces breaking off. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. So I'm sorry. I don't want to clap back at anyone. I appreciate you all being here with me. And that's what I like about this. This is a conversation we're having. We're the next morning, folks. We're talking about this movie. We just saw it. We're all very excited. Okay, so what's interesting is Janet saves Kang, Kang saves Janet. One of the things I talk about in the deep dive analysis is these blue arachnid looking things start out as just one that splits into 2. That's a recurring motif that you see throughout this movie. What is one is actually part of a hive of variance. And I think that's a very, very important thing for Scott Lang in this movie. None of us are an island. All of us are the sum of our possibilities. And I think that's something to consider when you look at this movie is we're all cats in Schrodinger's boxes. We're all made up of competing life choices. We're all in a constant battle, a constant tug of war with our own choices and where we could go next. And it was just so fascinating. That was my favorite part of the movie, to see Scott in that probability storm, because that's, I feel like, how I feel at all moments. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get our Everything Everywhere All at Once deep dive up yet. We're working hard to get it to you soon, but that's one thing that the directors of that movie talk about, the comparison of the multiverse to the immigrant experience, how you often feel like you're living multiple lives at the same time. I won't get into that too much now. So moving forward here, I keep using the wrong thing. Again, what you're looking at is our string out. This is something that we compiled from trailer footage. This is my hometown of San Francisco. Just moved there a year ago. What you're looking at in the background here is the Bay Bridge. The Bay Bridge doesn't get enough love. Golden Gate Bridge, people love Golden Gate Bridge. I get it. It's a modern marvel. I love the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm proud that, you know, I'm in the city where it's connected to. But the Bay Bridge, You Bay Area people know what I'm talking about. That is a beauty of a bridge, and I love it. And I love that more and more of these shots. We saw this similar establishing shot in Matrix Resurrections. Looks like it was from a similar angle. I actually walked to that house atop Russian Hill just so I can get that same view. It's gorgeous. Okay, so this opening sequence here is set to Welcome Back, Kotter. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Which I had to rewatch 2018's Ant-Man and the Wasp to remember that it actually begins with a similar kind of sitcom opening title music. It was a Partridge Family. So I feel like it's connected to that. But there is some deeper significance to the Welcome Back, Kotter music. What's weird, though, is like, what are we being welcomed back to? Scott has been in San Francisco for years right now. He's not being welcomed back to anywhere. I feel like we are being welcomed back. And I think Scott, from having his nightmare dreams, connections to the quantum realm, by the end of this movie, we're going to see him welcome back. And it's so fascinating that the end of this movie circles back to this. It almost feels like we're re-beginning a loop, right? It's like we're in WandaVision. We're all in a simulation. And what is reality when it's written by Kangs, if not a simulation? People are controlling it. I guess that's a pretty deep thought, right? If we live in a world orchestrated by a master clockmaker's divine control, is it a simulation? Yikes. I think I need to go back to church. Yeah, I need to go back to church. Checking in on the comments here. Yeah, I like that, Jordan. You're right. Implying the ending by the beginning. Great movies always try to do that. And I think all Marvel directors understand that principle. It's pretty much, you know, filmmaking 101 is you want your movie to be bookended like that, to feel like that. So yeah, you'll see in the Easter egg breakdown today, coming out later today, there's a couple fun cameos here. We see here Ruben Rabassa, who cameoed in an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's also from I Think He Should Leave. This opening sequence, of course, Jimmy Woo shows back up. There's some close-up magic. There's another YouTuber cameo. Ryan Bergara shows up here. If you watch Watcher, by the way. Such a great channel. And they're all like former BuzzFeed folks, but they created their own thing. Ghost Files, so great. He gets a cameo. He and his wife get a cameo here. And I was like, what do I gotta do to get an MCU cameo? I feel like I'm closer than ever. But I did appear on an episode of the Top 5 Beatdown, so I feel like I'm technically MCU canon by association. Okay, so he says, thank you, Spider-Man, which I love because who the hell knows who Spider-Man is anyway right now? No one knows who Spider-Man is because of a memory wipe spell. If you're just tuning in with us, a reminder, we are watching a live breakdown of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. We're doing it. It's filled with spoilers, and we're going through a string out. I love the stuff here. I love the return of Dale from the past Ant-Man movies. He gets this award, Employee of the Century, Scott Lang. That's his old apron from Baskin Robbins, and it says Jack on it, which, you know, Paul Rudd put that there because his son's name is Jack. And in the first Ant-Man movie, I believe the other customer, the person whose name he made it out to, is his daughter's name. So you get some nice cameos there, which is great. Now, an important thing to point out, Scott has a new suit here. This is a different design than what we saw the last time, which I believe was Endgame, right? It's redesigned, and we see the practicality of that in a bit. It's like a slap-on suit, right? It uses nanotech, which I think is a very big deal. It means that, like, obviously Hank Pym knows his way around nanotech. All of his tech is nanotech in a way, but I just like to see these little upgrades movie to movie. It's not just the production designers in the studio just trying to get more excuses for toys to sell out there. No, there's some practicality to it, and we see it used throughout the movie. I'm going to be skipping ahead a little bit. I don't want to be here all day, even though I could do this all day. We see, yeah, again, Golden Gate Bridge getting all the love. This is them atop the Golden Gate Bridge. That's, I believe, Marin County behind them. I don't know. I'm trying to look. Yeah, that's got to be Pacific Ocean. Yeah, why not hang out on the Bay Bridge? Bay Bridge is a better bridge. Kenobi Bwin, what's up, Voss? Excited to go on this journey with you. Good luck to the deep dive. Thank you so much. SF doesn't even have a Baskin Robbins. You know what, Monty? I think you are right. I don't think we have a Baskin Robbins anywhere in. What's your favorite ice cream place in San Francisco? I like Salt and Straw, but even though that's like a Portland place that's all over the West Coast. Yeah, my favorite bakery, I'm saying this now so they give me free stuff, is Susie Cakes. Susie Cakes San Francisco. Oh, John knows what I'm talking about. Susie Cakes is the bomb. I love Susie Cakes. Susie Cakes, if you want to hook me up just with a cupcake, a free birthday cupcake, I'll shout you out in every video I ever do. Okay, so Scott is on a book tour right now. Look out for the little guy. This is actually shouted out in an Easter egg in Black Panther Wakanda Forever in the news sticker on the Anderson Cooper broadcast. But what I love about this, and it's something I'll explore in the deep dive analysis I do next week, is that Scott is going through the steps of becoming an Avenger. And I call it in that video, apologies for the pun, I call it the Lang Dynasty. Because this movie, I believe, yes, it introduces us to the Kang Dynasty, but it's really, at its heart, the story of the Lang Dynasty, the 6 phases Scott needs to go to really earn his Avenger status. Because he is a de facto Avenger. He calls himself an Avenger. He's publicizing himself as an Avenger. But you know what? A lot of people can go around on the internet and go around in public saying that they are something, but don't actually have the proof in the pudding to back it up. And Scott, I believe, is that. Yes, he did save the world. Yes, he did save the multiverse. Really, the Rat did a lot of the work there to get him out of the quantum realm. But I think right now, Cassie is doing a lot of the Avengering. Hope is doing a lot of the Avengering. So this shot was not in the movie. That's something that we talk about in our investigation, is they'll often put things just for context, for story setup, in trailers for movies that are not. So we were kind of thrown by this when we saw this in the trailer, like, wait, that's an actual frame from the 2015 Ant-Man movie. No one had a camera that close to young Cassie in that moment. But then I, went off on this tangent where I was like, oh, well, Kang, his whole view of the multiverse and of the MCU is from the camera lens of the directors who made all these things. So, but no, it's not in the movie. That just says jail. But it's actually a really funny joke in the movie, because why does Scott have like jail saved as a number in his phone? I just thought, I love that. The jokes in this movie are really fun. So moving ahead here, Cassie gets out of jail. She shrunk a cop car, which I think is a really fun Hank Pym reference, because Hank Pym shrunk the Soviet tank in the 2015 movie in ways she's evoking, and she's like following in the footsteps of both generations of Ant-Man. Like the Hank Pym by shrinking the vehicle, or the oppressive vehicle, however you want to call that. And then she starts her journey in jail the way Scott Lang did. So this is a fun Volkswagen product placement, and this is I believe the Union Square part of San Francisco. Yeah, I've definitely shopped at that Macy's before. I bought 2 pink ties, and I forgot to return one of them, so now I have 2 pink ties I'll never wear again. It was for my wedding. It matched the suit. The thing about, if you were in San Francisco, this is a part of town that is it's close to what's called the Tenderloin area, and there are some homeless encampments around there. I think a lot of people get a false impression of the city of San Francisco. I used to have a very false impression of the city. I love the city of San Francisco, and it's because you can't get an Airbnb in the city, and the only hotels you can stay in San Francisco are in this area. So that's where all the homeless encampments are, and so people think that the city is overrun with homeless people. No, it is not. Like any city in the United States, homelessness is a national crisis. It's a major issue, and San Francisco is no different. The reason you see people sleeping on the street is because you can survive by sleeping outside at night in California. Most parts of California, you cannot in the city in Chicago or the city of New York. So judges in those states required that they have to provide beds and shelters for people in those cities, because it's inhumane to let them sleep outside. That's not the case in California. So it's more visible. It's more in your face. But you know what? if certain media outlets will let people think that San Francisco's a real crap hole, if you want to believe that, fine, great. Fewer tourists for me to have to wait in line at Susie Cakes with. Okay, so we get this great moment where a bunch of MCU callbacks here. Scott mentions when he traveled in time with Captain America. His audiobook talks about when Hulk turned him into a baby, and he talks about Rocket Raccoon. I think these are all like, they're not just random MCU references, they're important MCU references, because Rocket's going to be a very big deal in Guardians Volume 3. And then the whole idea of time dilation through your body, very, very important in this movie, especially when it comes to ants. And I think that is something that's not celebrated enough about the Ant-Man movies, is they are ant movies. Peyton Reed clearly loves the species of ants. And I think that's something I forget about all the time, but ants end up becoming the hero of this movie. We have been live streaming for about 20 minutes now, so I don't want this to be forever. A reminder that this is a live stream, a live breakdown of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and we are spoiling the movie in this live stream. I'm going through it frame by frame to just show you my process. What we're looking at is a string out that we compiled of trailer footage. This is how we do all of our videos. I can't bring my notes on screen right now, but literally I went through trailer by trailer, going shot by shot, frame by frame, time coding the shot and putting it in an outline. So what we do here at New Rockstars is not magic. It's just tedious research that no one else in their right mind would spend the time doing. If, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I'd love to work for you. My response is, no, you wouldn't. This is not a fun job. It's a very rewarding job, but the process of doing the actual work to break something down sucks. It sucks. I only do it because I am obsessed, because I am paranoid, because I want everyone in the world to see what I see when I watch movies and to appreciate movies the way I try to appreciate them. And to do that, you have to go through frame by frame to find all the little details. We learned that, ironically, Cassie was protesting the clearing of homeless encampments, even though Marvel, to shoot the shot, had to clear homeless people out of Union Square. So moving forward through the movie, John knows what I'm talking about because he's spent a lot of time in San Francisco. Seriously, come visit San Francisco. Just hang out in the parks. I was about to say go to the marina. Don't go to the marina. a lot of bros in the marina. Some great bars, some great nightlife, but just go to the parks. I mean, it has the best parks. The city has the best parks. I think every city in San Francisco has trees on it. There are more dogs than children in San Francisco. It's of all North American cities, has the most fire stations per capita. And that's per capita. It's because our city burned down at one point. A lot of people died, lost their homes. But that's why the city exists the way it does. This has just become like a live stream about the city of San Francisco. But, you know, okay, so that house, the Pym house, not far from where I live. I can ride my bike to it if I had a bike. So this pizza scene, they enlarged the pizza. Peyton Reed confirmed, Back to the Future Part 2 reference. And what's important here is you see Hank Pym has the hearing aid. That's an important little detail that sets up, obviously, what happens in the rest of the movie. I don't think that's enough pizza for a family of 5. That's my biggest pet peeve when I watch movies. They're like, we got a pizza, and it's one pizza that they put down. I'm like, what if I want 3 pieces? They have side salad. Salad doesn't fill you up. I want 3 nasty, greasy, cheesy slices of pizza. Get 2 pizzas. Make it bigger. Okay, so moving ahead here, through our string out, important shot as they go down to the lab. Right away, we see the sentient ants. I say sentient ants, they just have the AI helmets on. But already in this ant farm, look at that. They're already building stuff. And that's one thing I love about this movie. It's an ant-forward movie. And you see like little structures. What are these? Like little lights? These look like buildings. This looks like Tomorrowland that they're building in this ant farm. So they're already super advanced ants. We already know. And they keep cutting back to these ants throughout this movie. It's not a random thing. It's something that obviously Peyton Reed really cares about. The episodes of Mandalorian he directed have an ant creature in it. He loves it, and I love it too. I mean, even the Book of Boba Fett, those little droids that Luke is using to build his school are ants. I think we can learn a lot about ants. The Last of Us, what species does cordyceps infect? Well, everything. There's a ton of different cordyceps fungi, but ants in particular. Ants, Ant-Man. Okay, so one thing that a lot of people were confused about, or at least people I talked to, is Janet Van Dyne in this movie. In the 2018 movie, she's like all on board with Scott going down to the quantum realm. Yeah, go ahead, get your healing particles for Ghost, someone who was trying to kill us a second ago. Sure, go for it. Now, she's like, wait a minute, you're communicating with the quantum realm? Turn it off! And she yanks the power cord out. She didn't know what that would do, but she panics. So what changed? There's a couple ways you can look at it. One is we're a couple years after that. The time heist has happened. She's just freaked out about messing with the quantum anything with the timelines and doesn't want a kid to be doing it. It's also different to send an adult down there for a few seconds to harvest some healing particles versus a kid unsupervised talking with whoever in the quantum realm. That scares her. There's also the possibility that we're looking at a changed timeline. That before, the Janet that we knew in 2018's Ant-Man the Wasp did not know Kang. But since the time heist, since the events of Endgame, while everyone was dusted, they changed the timeline by letting Loki go out on a branch timeline. And obviously, through the events of Loki meeting Sylvie, Sylvie and Loki meeting He Who Remains, Sylvie killing He Who Remains, the sacred timeline bursting, that's what changed everything and warped all of time so that now Kang existed throughout history. That might be why we haven't seen Kang so far. And Janet maybe didn't have that history with Kang when Hank found her in the 2018 movie. That's just a theory. That's just my interpretation. Just one way to look at it. Okay. Let's see. Eric, my brother in Christ, I think it's called a retcon. Well, possible. It is possible that it is a retcon, crazy old Ben. But I always want to try to find some rational excuses in here. I think it is, but I think you are right. It is a bit abrupt. It is a bit abrupt. Okay, so they all get sucked in, and we find out later that the one who did this was Modoc. We don't really know how Modoc was able to remotely hardwire a machine that was not a teleportation device to open up a rift. But it just sounds like if you have the right technology, you can open a portal, or maybe because it was like communicating with the quantum realm, it's just communication technology is not the same as spatial rifts opening up. There's a lot of unanswered questions in this movie. I'm not going to claim to have all the answers to it, but the fact that Modoc is able to do this, and we're not really explained how he's able to do it, and they're able to do it but not just escape the quantum realm, I don't know. I don't know. I try not to focus on these things when I watch the movies. What's really fun about the scene, though, is ants are everywhere on the screens. There's books about ants on the desktop. Yeah, very ant-forward movie. Really fun. So we're moving forward through it now. And then we go down into the quantum realm. And one of the things we see when they get sucked down, one thing I really liked is that Hope makes the choice to do it, whereas everyone else gets sucked down. So Hope is super heroic in this movie. And I like that she looks at Scott and she's like, all right, screw it, I'm doing it. I don't know if I'll make it out the other side, but I don't want to live in a world without my parents, my old parents who abandoned me for most of my life, even though I'm running a very important nonprofit. Okay, so as he goes down, I don't know if you guys notice this, he totally bumps into the ant farm. That's something he does. And I love that, like, we see the ant farm and it's bigger than he is. So part of the time dilation, part of the sucking down in the quantum realm, it resizes everyone relative to each other. So I just like these little details. It keeps coming back to the ants. Another fun detail. So Scott, you see, it all says like 1 week because we pulled this from trailers. That's how we reassemble the movie. It's a lot of work. He slaps on the suit. It's very Iron Man-y, and in this case, I just like it. He does this so that he can catch Cassie, but he doesn't need to, which is really cool because Cassie has her own suit. She's kind of incapacitated right now, so maybe he does, but she totally knows how to operate this tech. And after he catches her, he's kind of out of it. He's a little woozy. She taps his hand to resize him back down, which just shows that she knows how to do all this. Just those little details I really, really like. It's not until later when they're in the camp when she reveals that she has a suit. Yeah, again, we're looking at the volume here, and you can have your criticisms with the overuse of the volume in Disney properties. I much prefer, I don't necessarily look at the photorealism of things, especially the first time I'm watching stuff, because I know it's not real. I feel like I'm watching, I look at these things the way I watch a play, like a stage play. I'm looking at stages, a suspension of disbelief going on where I'm just going with it. I'm more interested in the design of it. I love these floating crags, these energy columns, these, I don't know if they're lightning columns that are coming down, the big portals in the background. I think criticism I have for Quantumania is that it didn't really give weight to these settings. Like characters, it seems like Paul Rudd, Catherine Newton don't really even know what they're looking at, even though they did. They had the volume. So they had a representation, but it seems like they didn't really understand it. And their motive for all these scenes is confusion and awe And awe is really hard to convey as an actor unless you know the stakes of what paradigm is being shattered. Like I think there's certain movies like I'm trying to think, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Arrival, Interstellar. You see characters having awe. I think the best example of awe on film is Jodie Foster in Contact when she's looking at the star system of Vega and there are tears in her eyes and she's saying they made a mistake. They should have sent a poet. And I think that is such a beautiful. A lot of people have issues with that movie. There's no sexual chemistry between McConaughey and Jodie Foster. I get it, but I still love the movie, and I think that is such a great representation. Jodie Foster is an amazing actress, and I think understands how to convey awe, and that's something that I think a lot of Marvel actors struggle with because they don't understand the plot significance of what they're dealing with here. So meanwhile, as these two talk, the rest of the family wakes up in another part of the jungle. Janet knows how to hide from things. I like how they have this little Wizard of Oz moment with the orb that's like floating through. You're like, wait, that's not a star or just a bubble. It's moving at a weird rate. It's stuttering. So just like a nice little thing where they see the danger before we see the danger. There's a great moment in Wakanda Forever where that happens, where Okoye and Nakia are talking outside of Okoye's house. Or Nakia's house, can't remember. But the flood water just starts to seep in the corner. And then you're like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Anyway, so we're moving forward now. Scott's like, we're camping. She's like, we've never been camping. He's like, yeah, but we've talked about it. I love how he grapples with this thing. We don't ever really understand what it is, but he is able to extract himself from it and then start to like throw it around. It's really fun. And then it gets eaten by this paramecium. Now, one issue I've had with these Ant-Man movies is things that are supposed to be cellular creatures are in the quantum realm that is supposed to be subatomic. Do you understand the scale between subatomic and on the cellular level? It's insane, the powers of 10 that separate those things. So it would mean this paramecium would have had to itself shrink and go down in the quantum realm. My assumption is that, you know, maybe when Janet or Scott or anyone else went down there, they threw some loose PIM particles, and then it connected to those creatures that shrunk down to the quantum realm. It does not make sense that a paramecium or any kind of cellular creature like this with flagellates and all that stuff would exist down here. So this maybe either isn't a paramecium, but it was the same thing with the water bears, with, you know, those things in the 2018 movie. Those should not have been subatomic. You can see them with your naked eye if you have a really great magnifying glass or if you cross your eyes the way I do when I look at Marvel movies. We meet the freedom fighters, Zalem. I like how this guy just screams. All we hear him do is scream. This guy gets done dirty by Kang later, but you know what? He doesn't have a face. So it's hard to connect or care about someone who doesn't have a face. That's why the Pixar animators put eye pieces on Wall-E. So when he dies, I don't really care later on. This guy was kind of a jerk. He just wanted to torture them the whole time. Didn't care. So Janet, when she's talking about the quantum realm, Hank's like, there's a quantum realm down here. It's like, dude, you went down to a quantum realm too a few years ago. You should understand there's been aliens arriving to your planet. Why are you so blown away by all this? But she uses the term subatomica, which I find interesting. Subatomica in the comics is like a solar system that contains the different worlds of the quantum realm. So it implies that like subatomica exists. That's like something that they're passing through on the way down in the quantum realm. Might just be a Marvel word that they threw into it. I'm not really sure. This is a part of the movie where when I was watching it with Jessica for the first time, I was a little frustrated because they kept mentioning Kang throughout the movie. But they didn't get there until like 46 minutes after we saw him, which would be fine if the trailers didn't throw Kang in our face constantly. If we didn't already want to see Kang from the ending of Loki. Kang is the reason most people came to see this movie. You cannot deprive us of Kang for that long in the movie. And they kept presenting it as a mystery. It'd be one thing if they said Kang and then showed like his mural somewhere in the quantum realm. But they made it like a mystery. Like there's someone I haven't told you about. Who? Cut to another scene. I lost my mind. I just want to see Kang. But hey, when Kang entered the frame, game changer. I loved it. Okay, we meet the freedom fighters and Veb. Veb is voiced by David Dastmalchian, who voiced Kurt, one of the ex-con security guys. He also played Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad. His voice is incredible. I really miss Luis in this movie, though. I gotta say, I think this movie needed Luis. We gotta figure out something to do with Michael Pena. A huge missed opportunity to not have Michael Pena just recap the entire Infinity Saga before Endgame. That would have been a lot of fun. Or just like you could have had him recap the past 2 Ant-Man movies. Maybe they didn't want us to recap the past 2 Ant-Man movies because watching the first 2 Ant-Man movies isn't as essential going into this movie as watching Loki or maybe Multiverse of Madness. I love Drink the Ooze. And one thing I love about Drink the Ooze is they're chanting Drink the Ooze. And it sounds like a menacing thing as Scott is being brought in. Like you think they're cannibals or something like that. But they're saying Drink the Ooze. And even once you find out Drink the Ooze, it is kind of scary. It feels like Temple of Doom, right? Like you have to drink the blood and you become brainwashed. But what's sweet about it is this movie's all about communication. And they're just saying, communicate with us. Communicate with us. That's all they're doing. By Drink the Ooze, they want him to be part of their tribe. Maybe not Zalem, he wants to torture him. But maybe that's how he shows love. Maybe he's a sadist. I mean, a lot of people think they're showing love by being really mean to each other in the world. But John's laughing right now. I like the ooze. I think that's fun. And I love how he goes in and wipes the ooze. And what's interesting is he's fascinated by Scott having so many holes. Like there's a moment where Scott, he does the math. Quaz is like, he has 7 holes. And Scott's like, yeah, that's right. Perfectly timed. They must have timed it like with the other writers on staff, Peyton Reed, because we were all doing the math in our heads at the exact same rate that Paul Rudd was in that moment. Veb, his eyes go wide and he's like, wow, 7 holes. He's so impressed by the idea of having holes. I think that's his dream. He wants holes. And when he gets the holes later in the movie, he weaponizes them and becomes Kirby. So I think he's fascinated by this idea of having holes, the idea of being broken. You can use those broken parts to become something more powerful into your final form. This is a one shot we see of this dune setting. This is an example of a setting that when you see it in the movie, especially if you see it on IMAX, a beautiful background that the characters don't address at all. And I wanted to just learn more about that place. You see a long caravan of these like, not Tusken Raiders, it's almost like Freeman from Dune, and they have these big balloon things and these centipede things that, you'll notice, start as 1, split into 2. Another example of one thing becoming 2. We are all the sum of our possibilities. And I wish that we had learned more about this society because they look so cool. Instead, she just kind of telepathically connects with a manta ray. Again, an interesting example of communication as a theme in this movie. There's a deleted scene in the 2018 movie where she uses like a device to communicate with a big creature. Now she's able to do it with like her hands. Like there's some kind of like Avatar shit going on. It's been a while. I've ignored the chat. I'm sorry, guys. The 7 holes part was hilarious. Janet and Bill Murray. She had needs. Yes, Frank, she did. Scott Cook. What about piercings? Yeah, what about piercings? I don't have piercings. Hi everybody. It's about to blow up. I know right now because you're like, we're seen. But I do this just to keep you guys under control, because otherwise bad things happen when people aren't supervised in the chat. Yeah, interesting note. Yeah, Josh, you're right. The fact that Jonathan Majors voices the 3 timekeepers just already gave us a sample of the different things this guy can do. I think one of the best actors Marvel has ever had the privilege of working with. I'm so excited for what Jonathan Majors chooses to do next. He's just so great. And I love it when you could see an actor is classically trained. We think of classically trained as irrelevant to being in action movies. And when you hear these actors say things like, well, this is clown work. If you went to college, I minored in theater. A lot of my friends were stuffy theater majors. The hardest thing to do for them was clown work. Physical work. They were always sweating bullets afterwards because that kind of physical work, every choice is important. Every raise of an eyebrow, every smirk. And you even see just like the little choices Jonathan Majors made as Pharaoh Ramatut, that little smirk. Like he just changes up little things about each performance, vocally, physically, facially, the way he carries himself, the speed at which his characters talk. He's giving all of us a masterclass in acting. And obviously Marvel has worked with a lot of great actors, but specifically seeing one actor make different choices, you see these are choices. One of the best examples of this is if you ever watch Sopranos on HBO, James Gandolfini, you think that's just how James Gandolfini is on the show. Rest in peace, that guy. We lost a great with him. But when you hear him in interviews or in other roles, he has a completely different way of talking. So that Tony Soprano way of talking, he sustained that and made it seem like this is just how this guy talks. No, it was a choice. Actors act. So whenever we get mad at studios for casting someone like Robert Pattinson gonna be Batman, no, the job of the actor is to act. And they will always surprise you with the choices they make if they're good actors. Okay, we're moving ahead now. I'm sorry. I don't want to get on too many tangents because I know you guys want to get to the Kang stuff at the end of the movie. Veb talked about him, talked about Quaz. Yep. Now there's a moment where she's taking them to Axia, and you see there's like a quantum knot. By the way, those things are called quantum knots, the blue helmeted guys. I don't think they're ever called that in the movie out loud. Maybe they are. Another thing, not said out loud in this movie, the word Quantumania. No one at any point in this movie's 2-hour and 5-minute runtime say the word Quantumania. And that's going to be my big core question in the deep dive video coming out next week on this channel. Another reminder, if you want to support Deep Dive, we got a bunch of great merch. We got this Deep Dive hat. The shirt I'm wearing has our little Vossmanot, which is also on this water bottle. Go to nerdriot.shop. Lots of great stuff over there. But yeah, she passes one of those outposts, and then you see Kang's mural on there. So you see the different ways that he is like taken over the society. Also, another way he's taken over the society is in the language, the cuneiform, the written language. I believe you see it in this scene here, where they're walking on this platform. Yeah, in the background. Yeah, that's definitely the same curvy language that you see on the bands within the multiversal engine core. It's based on circles, and that started on something that Kang brought into the quantum realm. So that just tells you a way that as this invader who has conquered this place, he has instilled his written language throughout the society. That's something that conquering forces often do. They erase the previous culture and they replace it with their own written language and spoken language. So just like little world details that I like. Also, there's a broccoli man who's pretty horny. Didn't he hit on somebody at the bar later? He's voiced by Graham something, who was the on-set reader for Crow in Eternals. Also, yeah, circles have just inspired so much in the quantum realm. You see the circles around this door here. She has to use circles, rotating them around. Like it's culturally the way Kang has influenced the quantum realm, because that's how he sees time, as a flat circle. This is something that I wish could have been explored in a more literal level in the movie. It just kind of is set dressing, but you know, when I see stuff like that, it shows that someone who worked on this movie cared about that, and I love that. We go to the bar. We meet Krylar. Gentora's like, "You came from above." Yep. And then Modoc attacks. So Modoc. Let's talk about Modoc in this movie. When people talk about the VFX in this movie, I don't think Modoc looked bad, but I think just the design of Corey Stoll's face looked really silly. And as someone who loves the character of Modoc and George Tarleton and his history with AIM and as a really over-the-top villain, there's a separate version of Modoc that's really fun. And the Patton Oswalt Hulu series was really fun. I hope that on the other side of Secret Wars, we can get a different version of Modoc in here. I think Modoc kind of sticks out as a sore thumb. I think he works if you look at this movie as a Alice in Wonderland or Wizard of Oz type thing, because in all these escapist movies, you should see some analog of your waking life or your past show back up in your dream world. And in this case, it's a previous villain who takes a new form. And he does kind of have this Cheshire Cat look to him. I compare him to the Tin Man. You know, the Tin Man was someone who worked on the Gale farm, and now you see a version of the Tin Man. It's played by the same actor. But it just doesn't necessarily work in what the movie is trying to do. It's just like an and thing and not a because of thing. I believe it's the guys who do South Park do a really great screenwriting lesson at NYU. You can find the video on YouTube where he talks, where Trey Parker breaks down like story structure, and he says like, if something in your movie is just and then, and you just add another thing in there, you're not really doing your job. Everything should be because of. Everything should be consequential or necessary. And I feel like Darren Cross Modoc was just kind of forced into the movie. Nothing against Corey Stoll. I think he's a great actor. I just think this is just a weird thing, and you either love it or you hate it. And I think structurally, I'm just someone who cares way too much about movie structure. Structurally, I just don't think it's necessary. I think it's just a little too silly in moments that shouldn't be silly. And we see his butt. So I was never afraid of Modoc. Not that you should be afraid of Modoc, but it seems like they want us to be afraid of Modoc. One thing I love about these freedom fighters is that their buildings are sentient. These walls truly can talk. And Gentora says something like, he burned our stories, which is something like a recurring theme with Kang. He wants to burn people out of time. He wants to burn and vaporize their histories. So the idea of he burned our stories is just like an interesting way to describe that. If you're just joining us, I know it's kind of weird that you probably have gotten it from context here, but we are doing a live stream, live breakdown of Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania. I'm giving people a behind-the-scenes look at what I do. What we're looking at is a string out assembled of trailer footage of the movie chronologically. So this is what I do. I go through frame by frame, and I just kind of I'm pointing out things that I notice about these that I really appreciate the work that went into it. Okay, so moving ahead here, we still haven't gotten to Kang yet in the movie, by the way. We still haven't gotten there. We get Modoc's backstory before Kang, which I think is a structural mistake in the movie. I think the audience coming to see this movie cares way more about Kang. So to just tease him in the prologue and not really get to his backstory, and then to precede that with Modoc's backstory, a silly, annoying backstory, it just makes that more frustrating. It'd be so much better if you started with Kang's backstory, and then in the somewhere in the second act, Modoc tries to have his crazy epic backstory and it doesn't live up to it. I think we all would have appreciated it a lot more, because we all would have been like, no, you're not the villain of this movie, Modoc. Step aside, my friend. And it would have felt more like a joke. Instead, it just felt like it was delayed gratification for us. And I'm complaining, it's only 46 minutes. I know this movie's only 2 hours and 5 minutes, but man, we needed Kang so bad. Yeah, these are just like things that we put in internally because we don't have footage of that, but we just tell our editors this is a scene where that happened, so we know chronologically. Okay, so this multiversal engine core, fascinating piece of tech. I have so many questions about this in particular. One thing I love about it is that it is the shape of a sphere. So what is a sphere? It's rings that are around each other that rotate and form a sphere. A proton, or I meant to say an atom, is a nucleus with electron bands that are rotating around it to make that it moves so fast it becomes a sphere. And that's essentially what this is. There's people who are like, not every sphere is just rings. That's just one way to look at it, though, from 1 dimension to 2 dimensions. A plane that is expanded out into a third dimension. And just as another example, Kang sees all of time as a flat circle. This isn't a flat circle, it's a 3-dimensional circle. But we know on each of those bands is that circular writing. That's like, you can only see that microscopically, but it gives this sphere greater weight. It almost feels like the Ring of Power that has the Elvish runes on the inside of the ring. I want to know what is on there. There's like some kind of greater significance, and it makes us wonder how many of the Kangs have this device. I have to assume he's the only Kang who has it, because otherwise they'd be running amok on each other. I think he has discovered a way to instantly teleport across space and time in the way that the rest of the dynasty does not have. And I think this is basically an extension of Tony Stark's quantum wrist navigator that he was able to contribute to Scott Lang to combine with his Pymtech to allow them to navigate, not just go through time and accidentally fall through a time vortex, stumble throughout time-dilated history, but actually intentionally navigate it. That's what Stark was able to contribute by his discovery through the inverted Mobius strip. That's the essential thing. And I believe that is why we have a Mr. Gryphon right now in the MCU who overtook Stark Tower. I think it's his goal to get every piece of Stark tech. He might even be Sonny Birch's mystery buyer from the 2018 movie. I think it's Mr. Gryphon. I think that is who's currently sitting at the top of Avengers Tower, and it's Kang Tower. We saw it pruned in the TVA void. Anyway, so we learn a lot of interesting things in this backstory with Kang. And this is one of my favorite shots in the movie, where you just flash back through Janet's point of view to Kang's history. He's burning a society. He's vaporizing people. What do we see right now? A burned forest. What is the metaphor used by the TVA? Pruning, clipping branches. All their artwork in the TVA courtroom is of a tree that the timekeepers are uprooting, are cutting down. They're cutting the branches off of it. They're handing to the TVA employees. This guy is not doing good forest management. He is burning the forest down. I know good forest management is to do some controlled burning, but not this guy. This guy is just burning the entire thing down. And in his mind, he's a step away from it. He's burning an entire timeline, but he's not doing it from the outside in. He is in the timeline. He's in the trenches, vaporizing people, vaporizing cities. In this sequence, you also see Janet see planets exploding. If you're just pruning timelines, how does one do that? He has to get in there and do it himself. Fine, I'll do it myself. That's what this Kang is doing, and it is terrifying. I would have loved to have spent more time here, but in the sequence, we see someone's face explode. You see a mother clutching their child. It's haunting and terrifying. And maybe it's better that we don't see it. We only see Janet's expression because she's terrified. And he's so mad. He's screaming. He's not doing this with just like efficiency. He's lost things. He's getting revenge right now. So I think some incursion killed someone he loved, maybe took Renslayer from him. So that's what's guiding his quest. He's a kind of multiversal eco-terrorist, later we find out. Jonathan Majors in this sequence is fantastic because he says, she's like, what are you going to do? And he just goes, win. To him, there's no better way to describe it. W-I-N. That's it. That's all I'm trying to do. I need to win this war. Because these Kangs are to blame for these incursions happening, and it's killing the multiverse. Jonathan Majors is so good, he even repeats the same lines he said before when he was a friend, a side-by-side friend to Janet, and he goes, time isn't what you think. It's a cage. He's just kind of lamenting with her, and now he's like, time isn't what you think. It's a cage. Like, he could just twist the same words in a different way. And he still controlled his anger. Jonathan Majors described this as no moves wasted. And you see that throughout his performance. He's just subtle. He's controlling his rage. But when Janet, he could see in her eyes how she doesn't trust him anymore. And he's like, he's trying to prevent himself from getting angry. But when she snatches that sphere, I love, by the way, that she quickly disrobes into her black and red Wasp attire from the 80s. She was wearing that under her clothes at all times. Love that. He loses his mind and blows up her farm home in an instant. She said we spent ages together. Ages. Which tells us at least a few years that these two are working side by side. And in a matter of seconds, it all goes to hell. And he destroys her home. I think that was brutal. Such a cool sequence. And we see why Janet's so afraid. And to me, this leads to the theory that Janet didn't know Kang in the 2018 movie, because she would have been far more traumatized and fearful. Or it's just a retcon. It's just a retcon. Yeah, again, this is from trailer footage, which is why it says nothing can prepare you. This is what we have to do. These stupid promos that come out 5 seconds on Twitter? I go through them frame by frame to find these little moments just so we can put it chronologically. This isn't a fun job, but we do it because we care so much about movies. Okay, so moving ahead now, we now know what Kang wants. We get this great confrontation between Kang and Scott Lang. I love the VFX on his face shield. And I think what my favorite thing about his face shield is how it clings to his face so much and his eyes glow blue. It's like in his body. It's neurokinetic. So it's like there's brain chips. There's stuff in his body that allows him to just like control this with his thoughts. And the way it like just kind of peels over his face. Like when he turns to the side at one point in the movie, you see it's like perfectly contoured on his face. It almost looks like his face is painted. So it's not just like a bubble over his face. So one thing that's great about the way Jonathan Majors plays this, he talks about being inspired by the great conquerors of history, Julius Caesar, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great. And we know that all these figures have existed in MCU history. They've all been referenced. I don't know if Julius Caesar has. But the fact that he references Julius Caesar, I think it's both the historical and the Shakespeare version of Julius Caesar, because he has been betrayed, and you see that kind of anger. And I describe this as Julius Caesar if we got to hang out with his ghost after Brutus stabs him in the movie. What if he had an afterlife? What if he had a chance to get back at Brutus? This is how he's playing Kang, as opposed to He Who Remains, which I would describe as Puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream. He's a trickster, still immortal, but a trickster, and is trying to meddle in the affairs of mortal men there. Now he's just Julius Caesar, but an immortal Julius Caesar. Thor gets a shout out here. We find out that Kang has killed lots of Avengers, all the Avengers. He calls Thor the one with the hammer. It's just interesting. Does it mean he's afraid of Thor? Does it mean he's killed Thor? I assume he's just killed Thor at one point. So we're moving forward here. Again, we get a glimpse of the no moves wasted quality. How Kang really is just using his fingers to torture Scott and to torture Cassie. I think that's so cool. Just with the twist of the fingers, that's all he does. It really sets up the rage that we see in the final act, how angry he gets. It's earned. There's like a journey to his physicality throughout the movie. It's really, really fun to see. I'm going to take some comments here. Let's see. I'm glad you have a job now. Journalist majors, am I right? You're one of the lucky ones. Marvelous Menace. Yeah, I am one of the lucky ones. It's hard to get a job as a journalist. I tried, and instead now I make YouTube content. But I try to apply the lessons I learned from journalism to this job. I think the movie set up that this Kang is Iron Lad. Interesting thought. I'll get to that at the post when we talk about the post-credit scenes, because I do think that they designed some of these Kangs specifically to feel like Iron Lad. Let's see. I think this is one of the best Marvel movies, Jordy. I'm glad you feel that way. I don't know if other people feel that way, but I think it has the best post-credit scenes of any Marvel movie I've ever seen. Is that crazy to say? I think Far From Home had some good post-credit scenes, but like, man, both of the post-credit scenes, both of them winners, and both of them gave us like very clear examples of what's ahead. I think my note for the Far From Home post-credit scenes is when we saw J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, we didn't really know what that meant because he was the J. Jonah Jameson of the Raimi movies. So here it's like, I think there's enough mystery, but we also know where things are headed. Okay, so Scott agrees to help Kang retrieve the sphere by shrinking it back down. And we go into the probability storm. One of my favorite sequences of the movie. I love it when Marvel gets weird like this. It reminds me a lot of the scene in Pixar's Inside Out where they go into abstract thought, just other ways to show how things work. But the reason I love this so much is that this is thematically what the movie's all about. I know I've said it a few times, but all of us are not just an island of independent thought. We are the sum of our possibilities. And I want all of us to think about that as inspirationally. We are not trapped on any destined path. At any point, we can change that. We can make a different choice. We can disrupt our lives, and we can break free of the path that we're on. And what's really cool about this, I talk about this a lot in the deep dive analysis that's coming on the 24th on this channel. What is the first variant that steps out of Scott? It's one who turns away from the threat, who turns back. This guy is a representation of Scott's cowardice. So Scott is now free from his most fearful self. And that, in a way, makes him more courageous as he moves forward. And we see that represented throughout the movie. The Scott that we follow is the only one who doesn't helmet up. It's not just a practical thing so we can follow which Paul Rudd we should follow throughout this movie. It's to show that the one that we're following is the one who's now had its baggage stripped away from him by having those possibilities step away from him. So I just like that. There's Baskin-Robbins Scott shows up, which is fun because it's not just like different life choices in this moment. It's past life choices. That's a Scott who decided not to become an Avenger, not to get fired, and just keep, or maybe Dale didn't fire him and he just stays an employee. But it also shows that the Scott we are with constantly is the one who has that in the back of his mind. Like, what if I didn't become an Avenger and I just stayed working at Baskin-Robbins? That someone in the thread mentioned earlier, there are no Baskin-Robbins in San Francisco. Yeah, I love that so much. It's true. Hey, Baskin-Robbins Easter egg, 31 flavors. This is the 31st Marvel Cinematic Universe film. I think that was just an accident. But hey, we're going to get to 31 eventually, and I'm glad that it was an Ant-Man movie. I'm glad that they referenced it. Now, when this happens, let me know in the comments, what do you think is happening here? Because it's not really referenced. We don't really understand why, when you get big in the probability storm, that you unravel like this. Yes, it looks similar to when Wanda unraveled Reed Richards in Multiverse of Madness. It looks like you're getting unraveled out of time. I think it's when any of these Scott possibilities, any of these variants, I don't think variant is the right word, but they are hypothetical possibilities. Anytime they try to diverge too far away from the norm is when the multiverse is just like, nope, you're out, you're gone. You're someone who just, you veered too far off course. So I think that's what this means. But it does imply that there's some kind of divine law. Because right now we are looking at the heart of the multiverse. You could argue this is the multiversal forge, the place that Bill Foster was talking about. The object could appear in multiple parallel realities, right? That's kind of what we're seeing when you go so far, multiple tiers down into the quantum realm. The multiverse itself we're seeing the spring, the wellspring of the multiverse. And that theoretically, each of these Scotts could represent a different Scott in the multiverse. And we're seeing how it forms. It forms by people making different choices. It's not something from outside, it's from within, which is a great way to think about the multiverse. And that's why I love Everything Everywhere All at Once, because it's coming from within Evelyn, not from someplace from without. Let's see. Yeah, no one really has thoughts about what I'm sure you all have theories. We're going to keep talking about what happened there. But what is the cure to Scott's mania, to cure his quantum mania, you might say? It's someone to love. It's a constant, right? So it's Cassie Lang calling out to him, and they all hear it. They all have that quantum entanglement, like Hank hearing the ants. They all connect, and they instinctively form the way ants can collaborate to lift up the Scott who is connected to that Cassie. That shared love of Cassie. I mean, it can feel a little trite, a little tropey to say love conquers all, but I think it's a bit more complex than that. The answer to the multiversal sickness you can feel by being overwhelmed with the possibilities of your life is to just focus on the one thing that grounds you. And that can be your love for your daughter, your love for your wife. Sorry, I'm thinking about Kelly right now. And she was the one thing that grounded me. I was lost before she found me. And that's, anyway, I don't want to do this. I don't want to look like weepy Erik too much because I feel like we've gotten emotional a lot right now, but lately on New Rockstars. But I think those of you who have that person in your life get it. And those of you who don't have that person in your life yet, don't worry. They're out there, or someone can be out there for you. Doesn't have to be a spouse, doesn't have to be a girlfriend or something. It can just be someone who you really care about, a really good friend. That's what connects you. And if you can connect all of your alternate selves and just kind of harness all those people to work together, you are unbeatable. That's the difference between the Lang dynasty and the Kang dynasty. The Kang dynasty hates and fears and is confused by his variants. He knows them and hates them. The Lang dynasty loves his variants and they love him. And that's how we're going to beat Kang someday, is we're each going to harness together our own council of ourselves and use that to overcome the guy who thinks that he's the first person and the only person who can ever work together. Look how crazy all those Kangs were in the arena at the end. They're shouting over each other. They're not communicating. They hate each other. They fear each other. Anyway, moving on. A really cool moment here where Kang goes, "Hello, Jellybean." Just showing that he knows Hope. He's heard all the stories about Hope. Terrifying. So cool. So he takes it. We get this great moment where Hank and Janet talk about, or not Hank and Janet, Kang and Janet talk about, he kind of gives her more info on what she saw. I have a whole video coming out on New Rockstars this week and just talking about this scene, specifically what that Kang War looked like, why they exiled him. We know why they exiled him, but why didn't they kill him? Well, I believe it's because if you were to kill Kang the Conqueror, he could just respawn as a worse conqueror. But if you exile him in a timeless space, you trap him in stasis. Or you just make him die an old man and potentially maybe even change his viewpoint as an old man. Like, there's something more valuable, I think, for them exiling him the way they exiled Napoleon on his Elba, even though that ended up being a big mistake. Napoleon was able to rally from Elba and become even worse than he was before. But a fascinating scene. He talks about incursions. We see his depiction of time as a flat circle. This is a little mini sacred timeline. And what do we see? He elevates this above another timeline. We see two timelines stacked on top of each other, two donuts that are kind of connecting down to each other. A cronut, you might say. I'm very hungry. So moving forward, this live stream's already gotten pretty long. I don't want to go too long because I know you all have things to do, people to see, reasons to go see this movie again. Yeah. Again, Jonathan Majors' performance. I will burn them out of time. So great. And the idea that he considers it something he will do with his hands. Like, there's so many fascinating implications to the way Kang operates. He's not a guy just pulling levers of some other device. He's not a guy who, like the TVA, just has a big screen or dropping a reset charge somewhere. This guy's getting his hands dirty. He likes to leave a scar. And what's really cool is when you look at the scene, the little pruned branches stay clipped off like roses in a garden, just kind of that ugly stump. That's what Kang likes. He likes a scar staying there. He wants to send a message to all other Kangs of what he did so that they can be fearful that he'll do it to them. Really, really cool scene here. I love it. I mean, I would have loved this earlier in the movie, to be honest, but I understand. Again, we have to put text here because we don't have visuals of this, but can we just talk about Hank with the ants here? I loved this so much. I've seen this movie twice. When Hank shows up with the ants and talks about what they have done, the crowd lost their minds. It might have been the biggest cheer and giddy laugh that we got throughout the movie. Seeing those ants form a Class 2 technocratic society was such a delight. It gave us so much optimism. I love that Hank goes, I know socialism is a scary word. And Hope goes, shut your mouth. Oh, Evangeline Lilly. I bet you had a lot of fun saying that line. But John, but I just love this so much. We can learn so much from ants, and that's just where they go. But you know what's interesting though? So there's like, yeah, there's takeaways you can take from the fact that the ants overcome Kang, right? Like the ants barge in through the gates. It's a Rohirrim charge from Two Towers. But when that happens, they carry Kang off. They peel off Jonathan Majors' armor. There's many people in the audience who are like, yeah, we get to see a bit of Jonathan Majors. Awesome. But he gets away from them. How did he get away from those ants? Did he defeat all the ants? Did he kill them? I like to think that Kang had a conversation with these ants. And he said, look, I know that over 1,000 years you feel like socialism is the way to go, but why don't we give dictatorship another shot? And he empowers one of the ants and says, look, I see how those ants talk down to you. Don't you think that you should be the leader of it? And he got those ants to mutiny against each other. That's my theory, that Kang is so good at his fascist propaganda that he's able to brainwash the ants and give them a second thought. Because anytime we think democracy and perhaps even things like socialism are going to be the wave of the future, fascism is always creeping up through the shadows to take things back over and put those intellectuals back on their heels. So be careful. We have to stay vigilant. Stay vigilant, my ants. Don't let it take back over. Too late. No one's listening to me. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. A bunch of goofy Cassie stuff happens here. Kang makes his big speech. I think my least favorite part of the movie is when Kang has a speech and he's like, I will get revenge against eternity in the dynasty of Kangs. And I'm like, ooh, more, please. What do you mean get revenge against eternity? The living embodiment of eternity who just turned into Chris Hemsworth's daughter? Or the dynasty of Kangs? Tell more. It gets cut off for this stupid speech of Cassie. And then we got to this Times Square reaction montage. I was like, oh, boy. And now, I'm not hating on Catherine Noon. I thought she was a lot of fun in this movie. Justice for Emma Furman. Justice for Emma Furman. She did a great job in Endgame. Anyway, but I want to see all three Cassies in a movie together. We have 3 great actresses who did 3 great Cassies. Let's get them in Secret Wars working together. But yeah, maybe it's just because we just saw this in Andor of Marva going, fight to the Empire. We just saw a big blue hologram. Oh, there's a dog back there who agrees because he knows that the word was not fight the Empire. It was another F word that they changed in post-production. All right. If I sound like I'm hating on it, it's really just because I'm reacting to this movie. Not everything in this movie works, and I think everyone can agree. Overall, I think it's a triumph of a film because it introduces Phase 5 in a way that I did not think I would be that excited about. And it's really fun. It's a very, very fun, silly movie in a lot of parts. I don't know why she's running for Modoc or why that matters. I think part of it is just like Modoc doesn't really work for me in this movie. I think if you had just had another hunter or another Kang, another form of Kang who hunts them down, or even just a very scary robot, I don't need Modoc to be this silly. I just was never afraid of him. Hey, remember when we had all those 10 rings theories? I don't know if 10 rings are connected. We don't know if they're not connected, but no 10 rings reference was made in this movie. I'm not surprised, I guess. There still could be a connection with the 10 rings. We know there's a connection with the bangles in the 10 rings. Hey, one thing important to note about Kang's loss in this movie, he totally could have gotten away with it. He could have gotten away with that sphere, with the quantum energy or the multiversal energy core. He could have plugged it in his chair and just said, Kang's blasting off again. And we never would have seen him again until we see him everywhere all at once. So why did he lose? It's because he got greedy. He needed to take his entire quantum city with him, his entire fleet, his entire army, his entire battleship, this fortress. He got greedy. And that gave Scott and the ants enough time to take him down. But is it fair to say he got greedy? No, because this guy just got sabotaged by the rest of the Kang dynasty. I think he probably feels like, well, I need this fleet to go with me to take on the Kang dynasty. Poor guy. He just has a difficult life. He's stuck here. He didn't really have a shot. But it just shows that, like, yes, I think we can all agree that Kang could have gotten away in this moment. But his goal is to not escape. His goal is to win. So we get to this interesting place where Scott grows big. And I don't know how you all felt about this when you saw it. The crowd didn't really lose their minds as much as they should have. I think we forget this is the biggest Scott has ever gotten. We don't really have a sense of scale because we're in this quantum realm city, but I believe, I did the math on this in the breakdown coming out on the new Rockstars channel later today. Scott, I believe, is 4 times bigger than he was in Endgame. In Endgame, he was somewhere around, I don't know, 150 feet tall, something like that, maybe bigger. I can't remember. Let's see, I have my breakdown script up here. But he is basically the size of a skyscraper here, a small skyscraper, 450 feet or so is my estimation. And I would have loved a line earlier in the movie that said, like, I've tried to get bigger than I did in Endgame, but it just has not worked. Just to kind of set up. But remember, he's supposed to get kind of woozy, you know? He needs some oranges. So this moment where he's huge is supposed to, all you get is like Modoc going, whoa, that's big. I love the lighting of the shot. I would have loved to have figured out what the light source is what's beyond these portals. I have to assume they're time vortexes that people don't go into because they don't want to get lost in time or over time dilated. But it is cool to see Scott smash stuff. I love this shot of Hope flying forward. I love him at the gates. And he picks up like a shield at one point. And he basically, after talking about being on Team Cap throughout the movie, I love that he gets to become a form of Captain America using this shield device to break open the bands. The Freedom Fighters join him. Cassie gets big. And you can tell she's thought about it at all times, has never really had the guts to do it herself, has been really worried about it. And then Kang says, I'll do it myself. This is a moment we see finally the rage boil over in Kang. It's a delight to watch, because even as these freedom fighters are running away, he's like, nope, you're dead. You're dead. You're dead. His scream is fantastic. I love the way his eyes light up. The scars light up on his face. Maybe it's possible that the scarring is just like the neurokinetic sensors that he put inside of his body. The way Rocket has like scars, Peter Quill, that translator is like a insert. Nebula and Gamora all have like cybernetic parts. I think that might be what the scars are. He has to, or like Wolverine, right? He had the scars on his body to get the adamantium in there. Kang might have his neurokinetic sensors in his body, and that's why the scars light up. That's a good theory, if I don't say so myself. The anger on Jonathan Majors, just palpable and incredible. So yeah, the ants arrive. Very fun. I love these guys. And what's really fun, if you are able to watch this, like if you go back and see this movie, try to watch it in IMAX. When the ants pass Modoc, there's one little yellow ant. When Modoc's like, oh, like barfing up, there's one little yellow ant that walks by and goes, huh? Keeps running. It's really fun. They do a lot of fun stuff with the ants in the movie. Okay, I jumped ahead here. Oh no, we're not jumping ahead. It's just a little out of order. Okay, so they open up this portal. How? I didn't write the movie, folks. But I think that what happens is Janet shows how Kang could have just escaped by just using that to just open a human-sized portal, and that's all they're trying to do. It's temporary. It's not going to last long. But again, Kang's interest earlier is to not just escape. He wants to win. Now, later when the portal opens, he's like, okay, my army's getting routed. I kind of just have to escape. And so she's able to open the portal that way. We skipped over Modoc's death. How did you guys feel about Modoc's death? Did it actually move you? Were you laughing through it? Both of the screenings I saw, people were laughing through it. So personally, I feel like it was meant to be a bit comedic, but it's just kind of one of these weird mismatched tones where it seems like they wanted us to feel bad for Modoc. But to me, what I like about it is it motivates Scott to be a true Avenger. What do I mean by a true Avenger? Well, I think there's six steps to be a true Avenger, but an Avenger is a hero. It's someone who avenges. And what do we see Scott in his final act? He's mad. He as far as he knows, Cassie might be dead. So he's pissed. And I like seeing Scott get so angry. And he evokes Steve Rogers by sacrificing himself to stay behind. He jumps on the grenade. Kang's the grenade. And he's willing to stay behind. And I think that's what's so important by it. And I think Modoc inspires him to take that step. Because Scott's been talking a big game with his book tour, but he's not a true Avenger. Hey, by the way, if you're interested in supporting the deep dive, we have merch. The shirt I'm wearing is my little Voss Monat. It would really mean a lot if you could support us. Subscribe, please. You've had to subscribe to comment. Ha 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 ha. But it's because we want to know that you care about us. You're going to love the content on the deep dive, by the way. The videos we have right now, I'm so proud of, and I'm so grateful to work with our editor, Devin Cleary. He works so hard on those. And we're going to get you the Everything Everywhere All at Once deep dive as soon as we can. We got to just take it back into the shop. Do another fresh pass on it. We'll get it out there. And definitely let me know what you think about that Loki deep dive, because I wrote that before I saw this movie. And as I was watching this movie, I was like, oh, I'm so glad I made that video, because it's going to be so relevant now to everyone after seeing this movie. So yeah, Scott's version of I don't have to win, we both just have to lose is his version of I could do this all day, right? It's a great line. I think people are going to quote it a lot. Yeah, just trying to fight him to a draw. Hope shows back up. Second time in this movie, she's re-entered the quantum realm voluntarily. And then they suck Kang into this vortex. Now, Kang's probably not dead, right? Like, we just saw how Darren came back after the same thing happening to him. So I think the idea is that Kang has been sucked down into a probability storm of his own. I don't think he has a way to get out because he doesn't have Pym particles or anything like that. But imagine what happens if you have not just a group of Kang variants, as we see in the Kang Dynasty in that arena, but a bunch of Kang possibilities. If he can have a conversation with every alternate thought this guy has had. Like, if we saw what it looked like when Scott talked to all of his alternate thoughts, imagine Kang, a guy who has seen countless timelines, burned countless timelines, has all these ghosts of other versions of himself that are chasing him around constantly. It's going to be a million times more intense inside that probability storm. But if he is able to master that storm, just imagine how scary that guy will be. And my theory is that Avengers Kang Dynasty will be the Avengers fighting the Kangs that we see in the post-credit scene. Avengers Secret Wars will be Kang Prime. And we're seeing the origin of Kang Prime by this Kang being sucked down in that vortex, into that probability storm. If he can come out on the other side of that, curing himself of his Quantumania, just imagine how fearful we will all be of him. Just imagine. And one thing I love about this movie and its ending, I'm not crazy about the fact that like Cassie can just kind of quickly re-engineer the portal. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because it's just, there's a lot of questions I have about that device and how she's able to do it so quickly. I would understand if years have gone by, but she does it in a matter of minutes. I don't know. I don't know how that's possible. But I do love how the epilogue of this movie loops back on itself. In the beginning was the end. We have the same music, and rather than it being returned to, most of the time when you see Joseph Campbellian monomyth story, it's supposed to be a circle. Hero goes on a journey, he wants something, he finds something, he gets something, realizes that what he got is not fully what he needs. He gets challenged by that, he challenges himself by that, he reaches a dark pit of despair, but then he truly transforms, synthesis has happened, and then he comes back home changed. You see that in all the great stories. But Scott, has he really changed? Well, yeah, he's scared. He's scared now at the end of this movie, and I love that. In fact, one thing I would have loved is if we had some kind of like, just a hint that something has changed. I think this movie actually does that. Did you notice as you're watching this movie how many people are wearing a specific shade of purple? There's at least 2 women that he passes by. It jumps off the screen at you. And it might just be in Scott's head, but it's that plus this disgusting green cake. This purple and green are the colors of Kang's robes. There are purple balloons behind Scott at that birthday party. Now, I don't know if this actually means anything. If Kang was going to get you, it would be a lot scarier than that. But I just think it shows that Scott has this kind of paranoia in his head. But that paranoia is valuable. And you'll have to wait and watch the deep dive of Quantumania next week to see why it's so important. But yeah, I think it's super valuable. I want to talk about these movies' post-credit scenes just briefly. We've been talking about throughout this. You can go watch on the main channel, New Rockstars. We did a whole breakdown of every Kang that we see, but it's basically I can't remember. It's a 1988 comic panel recreation. It's almost exactly what it looks like in the comics of the Kang Dynasty. It's the first time we see the full council of Kangs, the thousands of Kangs. It's like a Namor storyline, but like we cut away to Kang. We had already met the idea of the Council of Kangs a few years earlier in '86. But we specifically see 3 Kangs, Ramatut, Immortus, and then there's another one that, some people are saying Scarlet Centurion. Just the things that make Scarlet Centurion are the fact that he is scarlet, he's a color red, he has medieval-inspired armor, and he is technically Kang's son. Yes, he does go by Kang, but he is one of the big 3 Kangs, or the big 4 Kangs. It looks like they're going in a different direction, that they created a new futuristic Kang, and I think that Kang is going to be connected to Iron Lad. So when we meet the Young Avengers, when we meet Iron Lad, I think this is the Kang that Iron Lad becomes, or is worried about becoming. So they had to introduce the idea of a super traditionally future-y Kang, just to kind of give people a sense of like, there's Kangs from the future, there's Kangs from the past, there's Kangs from the present, there's Kangs from the recent past. And if you did Scarlet Centurion, it'd just be like another historical Kang. And you already get that with Ramatut. You get that a bit with Immortus. How ridiculous was Immortus, by the way? We didn't kill him. They did. I should stop smoking. But I love this post-credit scene so much. I love the distinct ways he plays it. I love that each of these Kangs appear through the glowing rectangles, just like Reed Richards did, showing that he's built on his ancestral family tech. I love that. I think you might see Scarlet Centurion. He's not scarlet, but he is wearing kind of gray medieval armor when we cut back to the floor. And there is one in a suit. And I definitely think that's Mr. Gryphon. just implying that there is a corporate Kang who exists in the MCU right now. I like the idea that there's 3 of them. It mirrors the 3 timekeeper statues, and that there's a 4th broken timekeeper statue. Could that have been Kang the Conqueror, who they banished? We'll have to wait and see in Loki season 2. Now, and again, just another celebration of Jonathan Majors acting. He had to record several different Kangs, at least a dozen different Kangs, on a green screen set, but each one you could see him making different choices. I'm playing a Kang who's kind of a boxer. I'm playing a Kang who's just mad. I'm playing a Kang who can't believe he's here. I'm playing a Kang who's kind of scared. I'm playing a Kang who's kind of annoyed with all the other Kangs. Like, you could see him having that conversation with himself, and it's so fascinating to watch this guy work. But I want to hear from you in the comments. What is better, the first post-credit scene or the second post-credit, the mid-credit or the second post-credit scene? To me, I think I like the second one better. Just the simplicity of going back to 1901, this expo, this exhibition, Victor Timely and his astounding temporal marvels. Just the layers of this, that his name was Victor Timely, which when he was introduced in the comics was, you know, he's a Kang variant, and that was an intentional nod to Marvel Comics previously being called Timely Comics. So it's this idea that he was there before the era that we knew. But the idea that we see a technological expo, a Thomas Edison type event, where have we seen this in the MCU? The first Captain America movie, the Stark Expo, the Stark Expo in Iron Man 2. Like, how historical was that to Phase 1? The idea of technological expos, these marvels that these wizards are showing people. Yes, it totally feels like Wizard of Oz, Professor Marvel, who is more of like a, you know, he's less of a technologist, more of a fortune teller. But in the Oz the Great and Powerful movie, he is more of a technologist. He's kind of a magician in a lot of ways. He uses a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's exactly how it feels. The fact that Mobius and Loki are so nervous by him, I'd be very interested to see. And my theory right now, we'll see if this ends up being the case. Is this the He Who Remains who created the TVA? Are we seeing the origins of the TVA? Because the TVA had to start somewhere before they started pruning. I think Kang needed a workforce. And we don't know of a Timely Wisconsin. It doesn't exist on the map. It got pruned. And it was in the comics what created Chronopolis. Now, we saw the Void. The Void is kind of Kang's version of Chronopolis, or he wants to turn into Chronopolis. But the Void is like part of the TVA, right? It's connected to it at least. I would love to see if like the device, the steampunk device that you see on stage, is the origins of the temporal tech that Kang builds the TVA into. We're seeing the ground level of it. So they're like, you know, that was like a big mystery that was left off at the end of Loki season 1. Like, all of that was removed from the archives. It was forbidden. Sylvie and even Renslayer couldn't even go back. Like, Miss Minutes was super cagey about it when they asked, how did the TVA begin? So I think that was setting up a question for season 2. And that's what we're seeing in that expo scene. So I'm just super, super excited to see the origins of the TVA. And I'm just going to take a couple questions because we're wrapping it up now. But again, the Easter egg breakdown for Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania is coming to the main channel later today. I have to review it, but it's gonna be real great. And it's just gonna be a streamlined, much more coherent version of what you just watched. I've been talking for about an hour, 20 minutes. I've been going a very long time. I've gone off on a lot of tangents about the city of San Francisco. You might not be interested in that. I think what you see in our Quantumania Easter egg breakdown on New Rockstars is going to be a nice 20-minute streamlined version of the Easter eggs. I think I didn't get to a few in this video. But let's see. Tommy Bechtold is in the chat. 2 more hours of Pretty Ricky. Tommy, thanks for hanging out, buddy. Let's see. Lawrence Cozy says, why are people being so hard on Ant-Man movie? All the Ant-Man movies are okay. Lawrence, I think you set it up. You said it perfectly. They are all okay. And that's why people just have a different synonym for the word okay. And that might be what you're hearing. So are you saying Victor Timely is He Who Remains? That's my theory. That's my theory right now. We'll see. I think that'd be very interesting if that was just a name that He Who Remains used. Eric, what do you think happened to Ghost? She ran off with Larry Fishburne in an alleyway somewhere in San Francisco, and she's gonna show back up in Thunderbolts. I don't know. Thank you all. Let's see. Bryce, Burra, Sarah, Dusty, Fabian, your local content, Matthew, all of you are heroes for joining me on launch day. You're really taking a chance on a new channel here. This is a big experiment that we're working out the kinks of here. Abdullah, I'm with you. Where is Luis? I would have loved to see Luis in this movie. I think that was one missing component. of this movie. All right, I'm gonna leave it there. But thank you all so much for joining this live stream, this live breakdown. Hopefully you learned about some of my process. I want to be more transparent on this channel and kind of show you guys what my job looks like and just kind of like dispel the myth around what we do here at New Rockstars. There's no magic. I'm not like a genius. I don't think I'm a very smart person, but what I can do is obsessive research, and I will stare at everything longer than anyone else will. So it's not a magical fun job that I have here at New Rockstars, but I am lucky to have the job that I have and get to work with the people that I work with. That includes everyone behind the scenes. John Costa right now has been helping us out. Everyone in the chat who works at New Rockstars. So subscribe to New Rockstars. There's amazing things that are happening on this channel. Please subscribe to the deep dive. Tell your friends about this channel. It's not going to be a huge thing, at least not at the beginning. I'm going to be able to get videos out maybe once a week. But I think what we are working on here it's stuff that I really, really love, that I've been wanting to make forever. And I hope you really love it. And I hope you're excited to see how this company grows, because we have an amazing family here at New Rockstars. And that includes all of you for subscribing. So subscribe to New Rockstars. Follow us on all social media. You can support New Rockstars. Go to nerdriot.shop for not just deep dive merch, but there's all kinds of great stuff. Oh, there's this hoodie that I haven't shown, a deep dive hoodie. It's Kang purple. It's beautiful. Yeah, I'm super excited to be able to do this. I don't know how many of these live streams we'll be able to do in the future. Hopefully, every once in a while, we'll be able to do it. Love all of you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.